everybody, Stokes here. I'm reading off a script right now, so I might not be looking exactly at the camera right now, but, I'll try to look up when I can. I know this isn't what you would really consider a Twitch highlight, it really isn't, but I wanted to start making other videos as well, and this channel is specifically for my socials, so I thought, hell, what might as well put it here. As you all know, I play a lot of Monster Hunter, and by a lot, I mean a lot of Monster Hunter. I have over 1,000 hours across different Monster Hunter games, and I still can't get enough of it. That's why I decided to make this review. Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate. What a fucking mouthful. I'll be covering a bunch of different topics, so timestamps will be in the description down below. And before I start, make sure to like and subscribe. This took me a lot of time and effort to make, so it would mean the world to me. And that sounded really corporate YouTuber. Ugh, I'm sorry. I promise I'm not like that. I promise. And before I forget, huge thank you to Felinaxo for these beautiful transition slides. They're perfect. Perfect. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. Amount of content. First off, I wanted to talk about the huge amount of content that the game has. Gen Ultimate has over 1,500 quests, and this isn't even considering the fact that most of the time you'll be grinding the same quests over and over for gear. In addition, there's also things like grudge matches, where you fight a set monster with predetermined gear. This puts you out of your comfort zone and forces you to adapt quickly to beat it. And yes, there is incentive to beat these, with sought-after materials only coming from these quests. It also has a staggering 130 monsters. This includes 94 large monsters and 36 small monsters, each with multiple sets of gears, for both early, mid, and late game. And most armor sets have both Blade Master and Gunner variants. Sometimes they even have completely different models, so don't worry. Just because the game may not have the best graphics, doesn't mean you won't be able to customize to your heart's desire. But I'll talk more about these things later. The game also includes 27 different maps. Some can even be explored in different times of the day, but I'll talk about that later in the Immersion section. There's also many different types of quests. I'll talk about the exciting ones in the Immersion section, don't ask why. But there's also boring ones like gathering, fishing, and paw pass quests, but these are boring as hell, so I'll skip them. The intro slide for this section accurately describes the immersion and excitement of these quests. Styles and arts. These can be changed at any time, so don't worry, you're not locked into one permanently. In addition, any weapon can use any style. These will change the core of how you play each weapon, giving them way more diversity. However, let's be honest, some styles are way better than others. Let me give you a quick rundown of what each style is about. Guild is the quote basic style, taking most moves from previous games, and that's really about it, nothing special. Striker trades some moves for more hunter arts, I'll talk about those in a second. Aerial is all about vaulting off and mounting monsters. You'll lose a move or two, but most of the time you get those back in your vault attacks. Adept is essentially a Dark Souls player wet dream, full of dodging and counterattacking from those dodges. And in Gen Ultimate, 2 new styles were added. These are Alchemy, nobody uses this so just ignore it, and Valor, the new OP style about taking damage to fill your gauge, where you unlock more moves and usually have insane DPS. Now, onto arts. Long story short, these make you feel like a straight up badass. Each style can equip a different number of them. Guild has 2 slots, Striker and Alchemy have 3, and Aerial, Adept, and Valor only get 1. These are essentially, quote, super moves, where after whacking away at a monster for a while, you get to use them. These can range from the mundane, like raising your crafting rate, a dodge, healing when you block, etc., to epic ones like giant laser swords, huge anti-air bursts, turning your weapon into a chainsaw, giant rush attacks, going into a demon mode, and many, many more. But anyway, the vast majority of arts also have different levels, where they can deal more damage, have higher values, are active for longer, but in exchange, take a bit longer to charge. And if you're one to focus on these, there's even special, hard to obtain, weapons that charge these up faster. And that's about it. Okay. I know what most of you veterans out there are thinking. Well, what about SP styles? Well, my friend, the answer to that is simple. Nobody uses SP arts. And if you do, nobody likes you, and you have no friends. Nerd.
So you use them?
No, come on guys, I promise. I don't use SP arts, please believe me. Armor. Like I was saying earlier, there's a huge amount of armor sets. In total, there's a mind-boggling 1,119 armor sets. Thanks for counting, by the way, Mav, you and OG. Each of these have their own model too. Fucking nuts in my opinion. Anyway, this just goes to show the freedom you have in both building sets and customization. In the late game, you unlock the ability to set armor as transmog armor. In layman's terms, what your armor looks like. This means you'll be able to set your visual appearance to be the stylish queen you've always wanted to be, while still retaining your skills. Speaking of, in this game, weapons and armor will have decoration slots. These, alongside innate skill points, allow you to unlock different bonuses to help you in your hunts. You can also craft decorations that give you skill points when equipped to put into said slots. But, and this is a huge but, the meta is not, and I cannot stress this enough, not necessary, despite what some elitists might tell you. This game is all about having fun, feeling like a badass, taking giant fuck you dragons and wearing them as hats. Just because the meta may have quote superior times and speedruns and just do more damage, that doesn't mean you have to follow them. There's plenty of fun and creative skills and sets to go for. Wow, great transition there, Stokes. Oh, thank you, Stokes. Weapons. In this game, there's a total of 14 different weapons. Greatsword, longsword, sword and shield, dual blades, hammer, hunting horn, lance, gun, switch, strike blade, insect blade, bow, light bowgun, heavy bowgun, side effects may include vomiting, diarrhea, pain, lethargy, more pain, mood swings, even more pain, and some pain for the road. Combined with the 6 different styles, this means there's a total of 84 different playstyles. And yes, I'm excluding prowlers, because fuck prowlers. In total, there's about 1,820 different weapons you can make, so get grinding. For those of you curious, I'll run down each weapon super quick. Go to this timestamp to skip this section. Greatsword is the Monster Hunter equivalent of compensating for your tiny dick with a Ford F-150. It does slow hits, but they deal massive damage. Longsword is all about unleashing your inner weeb with flashy strikes and constantly tripping your teammates in the middle of their combos. Sword and Shield uses quick strikes with easy to use infinite combos and the ability to use items with your weapon out. It also gets bonuses from oils. Don't worry about them, they're exclusive to Sword and Shield. Dual Blades used lightning quick strikes to kill a monster from death by 1,000 paper cuts. Mega Dash use is required. Hammers lead a simple life. Wake up, work on the field, come home, sleep. Just hit the head and you'll be good. While Hammer was the brother that went to the gym every day, Hunting Horn instead went to band class and was a total nerd.
Just because band kids are nerds doesn't mean you have to say it.
Anyways, the horn also hits the head, but it can also play melodies that buff you and your teammates. Good luck finding one online. Lance is all about poking the shit out of the monster. That's about it. Gun Lance is shorter than the Lance. This caused him to develop a Napoleon complex, so instead of just poking, he shoots out high damage explosions instead. Switch Axe can morph from a giant axe into a giant sword that deals more damage, but consumes a gauge to use. Yes, you can, in fact, reload your sword. Welcome to Monster Hunter. Charge Blade is a sword and shield that can morph into a giant axe that uses explosions in order to obliterate the monster. It's also probably the most complicated weapon in the whole game. Also the best weapon in the game, fight me. Insect Glaive embraces your inner Frenchman and...
Je suis monté.
This weapon is all about vaulting in the air and shooting out your kinsect to harvest a monster's life force to power you up. Oh, shoot, arrow. Bongo bongo. Light Bowgun is all about attacking with elements and fast shots from a range. Heavy Bowgun is slower but deals more damage, and can go into a stationary mode to rapid fire, just like real life fat people. In the end, there's most certainly at least a weapon or two that will strike your interest. While most aren't super complicated, you can get very in-depth with each weapon style combo and different playstyles. Skills. Like I was saying earlier, the game features tons of skills. 205 to be precise. These skills are what will make the biggest difference in your game, from longer evade windows, more sharpness, higher crit chance, faster sheathing, and many, many more. When choosing skills, you're able to fine-tune your set to be the best for your specific playstyle. Unlike Monster Hunter World, you need to reach a certain number of points in a skill to have it active. This starts at 10 points, and for skills with higher levels, this goes up to 15 and sometimes even 20. In addition, there's also talismans, aka charms you can equip. Their sole purpose is to provide you with more decoration slots and innate skill points. Late game, grinding for these is going to be your main focus on finishing builds. These skills make it so that even if an armor set has a lot of defense, in most cases, you want to go for another one with better skills and less defense. This, alongside with using different weapon style combinations, is what forms the quote meta in this game. There's also a special type of skill called a compound skill. These skills usually come from deviant or endgame monster armor sets, which include multiple skills in one. An example of this is the Bloodbath Soul X skill, which raises your attack, extends your evasion window, and makes you charge gauges faster. The sets that give you these skills usually also give you other skills as well. Going back to our example, the set also increases your attack when you're regenerating health, and makes negative crits sometimes become positive crits, so you won't have to completely min-max your sets. Some other creative skills include the skill I talked about before, Bitter Affinity, that gives your negative crit attacks have a chance to become positive crits. Another would be the Outdoorsman and Ranger skill, which makes it so that the map is always visible and it's easier to fish and cook meat. I just thought that was funny. Different weapons benefit from different skills as well. For example, the Durambros X set is a fantastic set for hammers. It increases part breaks, makes your charged hits charge faster, zaps monster stamina faster, and makes it easier to knock out monsters. However, this is a pretty bad set for a longsword. Despite this variety in skills, and the creativity you can have in building your sets, some are just clearly better than others. This has led to a meta developing for speedrunning and late game play. While the meta isn't necessary, the things it focuses on really help. Without getting into too much detail, the meta is centered around crits, so the skills you'll want: A. Increase your base crit chance. B. Raise your crit chance when hitting the weak spots on monsters. C. Raise your attack and crit chance when the monster becomes enraged. D. Raise the damage of crits from 1.25 times normal to 1.4 times. And E. Raise your sharpness so you won't have to duck out of battle to sharpen as often. Like I said earlier, the meta is not mandatory. You can use whatever skills you find the most fun and fit your playstyle. Monsters. Now, we're finally on to the main focus of the game, the monsters. Out of the 130 monsters, there's a huge variety between them. You have the basic monsters like deer, sheep, and crabs, and you also have your main objectives, the big monsters. There's a shark that swims in ice, can wear ice armor, and blow up like a balloon. A monkey with an elephant trunk that can glide and use its ears as a helmet. Fucking annoying roly-poly motherfuckers that always interrupt your roly-poly fuckers that sometimes monsters can use as armor to deflect attacks. A giant spider that can extend its poisonous mandibles out for longer range attacks. A lizard that has a sponge for a lion's mane. A monster that gets so angry that its blood literally boils, allowing you to see its veins through its skin and causes steam to form around the monster. A blind, electric, cave-dwelling monster that can extend its neck with the best theme in the game. Just look up Kezu's theme. A large variety of velociraptor-like lines that have drome monsters as alpha and many prey monsters as the rest of the pack. For example, the Iodrome, which can spit poison, and the Ioprey, which are its counterparts. A fucking giant fucking mantis fucking battle mech. A crab monster that can equip different shells for different abilities, and you can get different drops depending on which shell you break. An F-14 Tomcat monster, which I'll get into later, and a giant dragon with the sniffles, which I'll also get into later. There's also many different types of hunts. You have ones where you fight small monsters, large monsters, multiple monsters, monsters in small spaces, super and micro-sized monsters, and monsters in special arenas. There's even a special hunt where you fight an absolutely ginormous dragon, and you get access to things like artillery, cannons, binders, giant fucking nuke cannons, and the Dragonator! Many monsters also have subspecies, which change up the base monster a bit. This can include making it in a constant rage state, strengthening its elemental attacks, etc. There's also deviants, which vary more than subspecies and require permits to hunt, no waiting period. In the lore, these appear because the base monster evolved, aged, got wounded, or found a different niche in its new environment. There's also multiple different levels of deviant hunts, with one going as high as level 15. In addition, there's also EX hunts, which let's just say are hard. Also, yes, I added that line about the lore solely for the purpose of saying the word niche. Immersion. The game keeps you immersed in the world it builds in tons of different ways. I compiled a quick list of the ones that I noticed off the top of my head. Go to this timestamp if you're not interested. Wildlife in the background of some open areas. A lens flare and surge in music when you leave the starting area on some maps. Multiple times of the day hunts can happen. You can do things like mine ores off Urigan, a rock monster, and catch fulgur bugs off Zinogre, a lightning monster that uses them for its attacks. Monsters will drool when hungry. Monsters attack slower when tired and faster when enraged. Monsters with especially loud roars will damage you and send you flying back if you're too close. Took me 3 takes to say the word roars. When injured, monsters will limp away instead of run away, and some monsters will have telltale signs they're enraged, like when Diablos has black smoke coming from its mouth. Also, sometimes you're able to hear the monster roaring from a different area. Very nice touch in my opinion. And there's some more specific examples, like one of my personal favorite monsters, Gore. You can see in a lot of its attacks it throws its weight around and rebalances itself after such attacks. It has no eyes, yet, so it can't be flash bombed. When it enrages, it turns the sky dark from its scales getting scattered around. Here, let me show you an example.
With darkness black and choked in light, no brightest star skips my sight. I turn the dawn into midnight. Beware my power! Go Magalas now! You're welcome.
And it has multiple variants, like its half-molted form, where it has attacks from both its pre-molt and final forms. There's also Valstrax. When you first encounter it in the story after defeating another monster, there's a warning that pops up. That's completely unique to this encounter. Since its whole gimmick is that it's based off a jet, it has super fast takeoffs and flights. Before it does its aerial kamikaze attack, it will suck in air through its chest, and when speeding up, you can see it break the sound barrier. And when it lands, the music stops and you hear a metallic ringing sound from the ringing in your ears. You can hit its chest to cause its quote reactor to explode, and finally, when you see a red star in the sky, there will be burned husks around the map that in the lore are caused from Valstrax's scales falling off. Here, I'm gonna say something random just to confuse the people who skip past this part. And that's why I think Gore is thick as fuck and could get it. Anyways, on to the next section. Multiplayer. There's not really much to talk about here, to be honest. You have basic online hub searching, and you can play with friends. However, this is not like Monster Hunter World, where the thought process for difficult hunts there is, oh, you're having trouble with that monster? Well, just do it offline so it has less health. In Generations Ultimate, it's instead, oh, you're having trouble with that monster? We'll just get some buddies to help you out. I'd also like to point out that despite the shitty Nintendo Online servers, the connection is very good when playing online. Performance. Again, there's not much to talk about here. The game runs smoothly at 30 FPS. Remember, low FPS isn't what makes things look choppy, it's inconsistent FPS. I also might as well talk about the graphics here, since they're related. The Switch inherently runs at 720p. In addition, the style of the game stays true to its predecessors, looking more like a PS2 game than anything. However, this visual style works in its favor in my opinion, causing there to be no clutter, helping you focus on the monster and its telegraphs, as well as making things like hit markers clearer. Replayability. The game's main campaign lasts a long time, so you'll definitely get a large amount of playtime out of this. There's also quote post-game content where you essentially continue to grind, try new weapons, and get better gear, by challenging monsters and raise your hunter rank. From all this, you can easily get hundreds of hours of gameplay out of this single game. However, the lack of a true end goal might deter some people. This took 7 fucking takes and I have no idea why. There's also 27 maps to explore, with interesting variations, such as 3 volcano maps, where one is more a traditional volcano, another is populated by more wildlife, and the third is an isolated arena. There's also sandy locales, like 2 deserts and a beach area, as well as multiple forested areas. Despite the overlap in themes, each map creates its own unique experience, like the Bone Pit of Nekravol, the ruined Castle Shrade, and the fabled Forlorn Arena. Finally, while grinding may seem tedious, it's actually very fun in my opinion, especially with friends. Tackling the same monsters over and over causes you to become more familiar with their attacks, timing, and behavior. This causes you to feel like you're straight up downloading the monster into your brain, and is really satisfying. Cons. While I didn't want to have to make this section, I thought it would only be fair to talk about some of the things Gen Ultimate falls short on. This first point isn't so much about the game itself, but rather the community instead. The amount of elitism in places like Discord servers is honestly disgusting in my opinion. It's not the most toxic I've seen, but newbies will definitely have a hard time settling in. When asking for advice on the game, weapons, and monsters, the usual response you'll get is, get better positioning, use the meta-set, get better, with no concrete advice at all, reminiscent of the get good meme. There's some helpful people in the community, shout out Deshra, Tenon, Libra, and Epi from the Monster Hunter Gathering Hall Discord, but many people won't help at all. The graphics are also not the best. It looks like a PS2 game, so if astounding graphics is your thing, don't get your hopes up. The combat isn't the most in-depth, so a lot of time you'll be using the same combos over and over. This can be mitigated, however, by using Valor style, since it technically has 2 movesets per weapon, learning different weapons, trying new styles, and some weapons like Charge Blade which have a lot of combos and depth to them. The Switch itself also causes its own set of problems, like locking the game to 720p 30fps, and other issues like Joy-Con drift. Not much can be done to mitigate these aside from playing on an emulator and the Clash Action lawsuit, which, let's be honest, is not going to go through. When asked about player ease of playing, the Gen Ultimate team said, "Quality of life? I barely know her." There's the classic sip and flex. Carving and gathering takes a long time. Many attacks have very long end lag. The menuing and some controls are very unintuitive, and the loading screens from zone transitions are awful. The meta is also very strict, with really only one group of skills being viable at all. Some monsters have absolutely bullshit telegraphs, like Rathalos' charge and Rathian's aerial backflip. This, however, is mitigated by learning the monster's behavior, like when the Wraths charge, they'll adjust themselves twice and then charge. And when Rathian does the backflip, she'll only do it when she's in the air and you're directly in front of her. There's also some really annoying areas to hunt in, like the mid area in the Frozen Seaway, which is a giant incline and has tons of ledges on it that interrupt your attacks. You can't leave the Hunter's Hub while online, so if you need to talk to an NPC to get rewards from certain quests, or get new quests, you'll have to disconnect from the online hub. A lot of the game is really difficult, but you need a higher ranked player to help you. The game fails to tell you a lot of things, like where to get certain materials, what quests are needed to rank up, smoke bombs even exists, and many, many more tips. Side note, wiki pages aren't the most helpful either. For example, Koranico, a very popular site for Monster Hunter info, fails to tell you things like how you can get different materials depending on which shell you break off the Rust Razor Siennatar, how to unlock different quests, and that you can buy Village G tickets from the trader, among other things. On a lot of endgame monsters, your attacks will also bounce a lot, even if you have high sharpness, which gets really, really annoying. In order to accurately track a monster, you'll need to paintball it in order to see its icon on the map. You can always watch its shadow and see which direction it goes, but on some areas this is flat out impossible, like the webbed area in the Volcanic Hollow. Also, newer players unfamiliar with the maps will find immense trouble with this. Also, what the fuck even are the rock monsters? Why do they have sleep and poison gas? The fuck? It totally breaks immersion because there's no lore reason why they have this ability. It's like the dev team thought they weren't annoying enough, so they wanted to arbitrarily make them more difficult. However, despite all these shortcomings, there's no handler. Instead you get a Burna quest tender that constantly moans. 11 out of 10 game. Oh, and one last thing I forgot. I didn't include a gameplay section because it's really just watching for monster telegraphs, counterattacking, attacking when there's openings, etc. And there's only really, well, 3 attack buttons. You have X, A, right bumper sometimes, B to dodge, Y to sheath your weapon. That's about it. And you've been watching it in the background the whole time, so I mean, hopefully that's enough. If you need more details, again, just head over to my Twitch stream where I play it very, very often. And that's about it. Hopefully this was a good rundown on Gen Ultimate and piqued your interest. I had an absolute blast making this video, even though it took a really long time. Generations Ultimate is one of my favorite games ever, and I can't wait for Rise. Monster Hunter also has a special place in my heart, as it was the first game I ever played on the new 3DS, and it also got me through some tough times. So that's about it, really. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to a friend who's interested in Monster Hunter. Let's see how much of a casual scrub they think I am. And don't forget to follow on Twitch, at DStokes on Twitch. I usually stream at around 2 to 6 or 7 PM, so follow me there and try and catch me live to see funny moments in this cute little dog live. That's all for me. See you guys next time. Peace.